All right, guys. Davis and I back in the TCI studio. Davis, we're going to talk football. We're not going to talk scheduling. We're going to talk football. We're just about, 3 weeks now away from ACC football kickoff.
It's crazy.
It's getting close.
Yeah.
Davis got to squeeze in one more little vacation. I got to squeeze in a trip to the beach. But the grind is about here. This season, the summer season is all about hype. Right?
Yep.
You were just mentioning before we went on camera, the U is back.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit in this edition about, some of the things that are floating out there and some of our thoughts on where we think things will head with the ACC. And I'm going to put you on the spot right off the bat. Is the U back?
Maybe.
Maybe.
No.
That's actually perfect.
Yeah, in terms of 2022 season, I do not think the U is back unless Mario Cristobal is just that much of a miracle worker. But I think it's going to take anybody some time to get things turned around. But yeah, I think that's one of the biggest storylines. In addition to Clemson, first of all, is Clemson going to get back to being Clemson and being the top dog in the ACC? And then Miami, brings in Mario Cristobal, one of its own, after a really successful stint there at Oregon, known as a really great recruiter. I mean, you already see, I think Miami just landed a commitment from a former Clemson pledge. So he's going to get talent in there. How quickly can he get that talent in there, develop it, and turn them into a real contender? I don't know. They do have a really good quarterback, Tyler Van Dyke, who really had an impressive freshman season for them. But we'll see what happens, how quickly Mario can or cannot get the U back. But I would think if anybody is going to be able to do that, I think it's going to be Mario. I think there's a reason, they went out and spent gobs of money to pry him from Oregon and bring him back.
You mentioned Mario. I want to ask you a little bit about that because we hear, he did all these great things at Oregon. What did he really do at Oregon? Never made a playoff, right? But, obviously made them a competitive team, did a great job recruiting.
Right.
Obviously has the Miami ties.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard that with other coaches coming into Miami. Mark Richt, did all these quote unquote great things at Georgia, came in, things didn't quite work. They brought in another coach from all the way over there as well. And, what do you think is different about the coach they have now, Mario, than some of the other coaches they've tried here the last 2 or 3 cycles?
I think it's recruiter. I think that to me that's the biggest is being able to, because you talk about I never understand why Miami and Florida State, even Florida, when you talk about that recruiting base in that state, just how much of a hotbed it is, how they're ever down, from what they usually are. I think that's the biggest difference is
add NIL to his capabilities.
Yeah. So
more.
Yeah, I think he's an elite recruiter. Now, to your point, I think at Oregon he was able to keep them where they were. When you think about to Chip Kelly. Now they didn't play for a national championship, but I think they won their division every year. They were in the Pac-12 championship game. They were a top 10 program, so he sort of kept them at that level. To your point, also I will say I don't know about his coaching necessarily, because I think there were some games at Oregon that he lost that they should have won probably, or at least were the favorites. I mean, you even look at the last Pac-12 championship game, they got blown out by Utah. Right. So that's a concern if I'm a Miami fan. If I'm a Miami fan, I like the hire, borderline love the hire, but I do think there are some concerns about some of his in-game coaching and his ability to coach. Just in terms of pressing the right buttons and things like that. But I think there's no doubt he's going to bring in elite talent there, and that can mask a lot of things. You got to have players to win games. Just ask Dabo.
Yep.
So
the Jimmys and the Joes.
Exactly.
Well, the good news, Clemson fans, is you'll get to see Miami in Death Valley this year. You'll get to travel to Miami, which I love that trip. So Dave's going to love that trip this year. And then Miami will be back again the following year. So we're going to get to see Miami the next 3 seasons, at least once.
At least once, yeah.
Maybe more than that. All right, NC State.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, did better last year. Mm-hmm. Beat Clemson in double overtime up there last year. There's a lot there. I shouldn't say a lot. There's some people out there predicting that NC State is going to win the Atlantic this year.
Sure.
Thoughts on that?
I don't think it's crazy because as of right now, they have the better quarterback. And that, if you got the good quarterback, you can win. Devin Leary, fifth-year guy. Maybe it's a sixth-year. I don't remember. But he's a veteran guy either way. One of the best quarterbacks in the ACC last year. He should be the same. Now, they have some significant pieces. They have to replace the left tackle, whose name I'm not going to try to pronounce, but was a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Emeka.
But can he come to Death Valley where Clemson's 55-1?
It's a good point.
And win a game?
Yeah, good point.
If it was at Raleigh, I would understand the predictions more.
Yeah.
With the game being in Clemson and Clemson's defense, I just
right.
I think it'll be a better game than maybe some years past, but obviously I'm a little biased as well.
Yeah.
So
there's no doubt
it buying some of the hype.
I think it's plausible, absolutely. Now it's going to be a tall task for any quarterback, any team, any quarterback to come into Death Valley, particularly with this defense, and pull off a win. But if there's a team that can come in here and do that, it's one with an experienced quarterback. That also has the pieces around him to do it, because there was so much hype. You remember last year when Wake Forest came to Clemson with Sam Hartman and all those weapons, and they got shut down. So it's going to be difficult for anybody. But there are also 7 other conference games you have to play, and Clemson doesn't get to play that all until the road.
We're talking about that one. Clemson could win that one and lose another.
Exactly.
What are the other toughest games you think Clemson's got? Obviously, we talked about Miami a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You got them coming to Death Valley as well. As far as the road games go, Wake Forest still has that same quarterback.
It does.
You got to head up there. You got a talented Louisville team coming. I guess one point I would make is I think the Atlantic Division as a division is going to be much improved over what we saw last year. I mean, you go through that division, there's a lot of teams that could have some pretty special seasons.
Yeah, no, I agree. Getting Wake Forest being able to get Clemson out of Death Valley and into their stadium, I think that's going to be a much more competitive game. I'm intrigued by Florida State just because what's Florida State going to look like? In what, I guess, year 3 under Mike Norvell, and particularly that point of the season. I think they play in mid-October or so, maybe, at the time where a lot of teams start figuring themselves out and, forming an identity. So what's that going to look like? And if they're a lot better, then you have to having to travel down to Doak Campbell and play them. And if they're a lot better than what people think, that's going to be a tough game. So, NC State could obviously come to Death Valley and lose, and honestly probably will lose that game if I had to predict that. But there's 7 other games on the schedule that you got to go out there and win. So I don't think it's crazy to think that NC State or Wake Forest, with, as you mentioned, Sam Hartman still at quarterback, winning that division if Clemson's quarterback play is not significantly better than it was last year.
All right, I'm putting you on the spot again.
What's up?
All right, game 4. I think game 4 is Wake Forest. Wake Forest and NC State are back-to-back games. You get to weeks 4 and 5, and Clemson's playing those 2 teams. Is DJ still going to be the quarterback?
Man, that is putting me on the spot.
We don't know that answer, of course.
Yeah.
But that's going to be what you just said, what you've been talking about this whole segment, is how big and how important the quarterback play is going to be with that defense. It may be Dabo's best, or at least going to be one of his 2 or 3 best. How much rope does Dabo give DJ, knowing how special this team could be?
That's a great point, because I think he is going to be. I think would give him more of a leash just because that defense is so good. I don't think there's this. It's not like you have to go out there and say, we have to score 35-40 to win this game. We have to put the quarterback that's going to give us the best chance to do that, because our defense, we don't know if we can stop anybody. This team, this defense, and particularly that defensive front, is absolutely going to be one of the best in college football, if not the best. So now it's like, okay, can we go out here and win some games, 17-14 or 20-4? But at the same time, they also lived on that edge last year, and it burned them.
Do you want to do that? Do you also, if you get through those weeks 4 and weeks 5, and you get the victories, and you start looking, okay, we got ACC championship, we might be headed to the playoff.
And a lot of that
DJ's not the answer. Do we need to start getting Cade the experience so that by the end of the season he's a different player? Right.
I was going to say, I think a lot of it depends too on just how well or how much Cade progresses in the first month. So what does he look like in practice? And Dabo told us at spring meetings that the plan is to still play him a little bit to get him some of that experience early in the year. And I think you look at their early season schedule with Georgia Tech and Louisiana Tech and Furman and stuff. I mean, I think they'll probably, the scores will be lopsided to a point where you could probably rotate him in there anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's a great question, because I do think, do you trust this defense enough to maybe stick with DJ, or do you just want to if he's not performing well, try something else to where, these games aren't so close all the time and you're having to play down to the wire?
And, one of the things I've heard just from some sources the last couple of weeks is that, the running game is going to be a bigger focus point going into the season. But then that kind of ties in, okay, you take what could be a really good running game, incredible defense, that could be a formula to win games.
Right.
But do you want to live on that edge, like you said, that you lived on last year, where you got to win these games by 3 points or 6 points, or do you want to try to get your offense going where you got a little more comfort, which is what Clemson had seen previous to last year? So throw one more team at you. You've done, if you guys hadn't seen it, David's been basically doing a breakdown of all the ACC schools and who's new coming in, and different teams are getting help from the portal. Boston College has their quarterback back. Clemson goes up to BC. How much improved do you think Boston College could be this year?
I think they could be much improved. I just don't know if the talent level around Phil Jerkovich is good enough to make them a viable contender in the Atlantic Division. I don't see that. Now he's by all measures, he's widely considered a legit NFL prospect, and a guy that probably would be in the NFL right now if he didn't get injured last year and miss most of the season. But you have him back. You have an all-conference caliber receiver, maybe the best receiver in the ACC, and Zay Flowers back for them. But that's just two components. The offensive line, they got to find some answers there, and then you got to be able to stop people on defense. And I don't know. I mean, Phil Jerkovich is going to have to be special, I think, for them to really take that next step and become a legit contender in the division.
So maybe not good enough to beat Clemson and win the division, but maybe good enough to beat some of those other teams that are contending to get in that race.
Sure. Yeah, I think they could absolutely, if he comes back and has the year people expect him to have, and again, some of that's going to depend on his supporting cast, but I would not be surprised at all if they play spoiler and beat somebody maybe that people think they shouldn't.
Maybe similar thing could be said about Louisville.
With
another dangerous team, right?
With Malik Cunningham, absolutely. So, you saw what he did to Clemson last year.
Yeah, I mean, the ACC race, I guess what we're telling you is, especially the Atlantic's going to be a fun division to watch this year.
Absolutely.
Because on any given weekend, any of these teams could maybe pull an upset.
And I think this is all predicated on believing that Clemson is still going to struggle at quarterback, because I think that's the separator here in terms of how much further down from, or how big the gap is between Clemson and everybody else. Like, if DJ or Cade can come out and improve their quarterback play significantly, I with Clemson's defense, I think they're a step above, head and shoulders above everybody else. But if the quarterback play is what it is last year, like we saw, that narrows that gap a lot.
Let's hope that's not the case. I can't live with those Davis. We scored 19 this week predictions, which I'd never seen before. And then last year, it's just like, okay, prove it. And Clemson never proved that they could get over that hump offensively. So, all right, guys, that's just a little bit of conversation. We're going to have a lot more conversation here over the next couple months as we head through ACC kickoff, head through camp, answer some of those questions. How's the quarterback battle really doing? How are some of these other battles doing? Should be hopefully a more exciting season for Clemson, but we kind of had high expectations coming into last year as well, and those didn't go the way some thought. So we're going to have to wait and see what we see on the field. But stay tuned to TCI. We'll have a lot more headed your way from the TCI studio.